Hello there, and welcome back to Inside the Vault, episode number 9, a Carolina Panthers podcast. I am your host, Ryan Smith. As you know by now, this podcast brought to you by the Keep Pounding Podcast Network. Follow them on Twitter at KPPounding_FSSN. And this podcast also powered by Fans First Sports Network. Follow them at Fans First SN. You can also rate and subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel at youtube.com/Tobacco Radio. Well, my latest guest here on Inside the Vault, he is the editor-in-chief at the Riot Report, does great work there. Follow him on Twitter at Josh Klein Rules. Thrilled to have him on, Josh Klein. Josh, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate you the invite and taking the time to talk about some Panthers.
Of course. Yeah, we are just 14 days away from the season, so let's get right into it. Let's start with the preseason, the Lions game on this past Friday, and just the preseason overall. What did you observe from the team in your eyes?
So I think that I kind of have a different view of this season, what the goals are for the Panthers, or what they should be. Maybe it's different than I think it is a little different than what the front office envisions for the season. To me, nothing matters about the 2023-2024 season other than Bryce Young. And what I saw from Bryce Young during the preseason, I was very impressed with. I thought he showed a lot of poise in the pocket. I think it's very easy, and a lot of people are saying this, and I don't blame them, that they're upset already at the lack of protection and the few series that they've seen in the playmakers that the team has put around him. But I think realistically, what you see from this team is this is the way that you go about building around a number one quarterback, or a new franchise quarterback. Is you build from the offensive line out first. I think the offensive line is not as bad as it has been for the 6 series that Bryce Young has played. The 21 pass attempts, something like that. I don't think they're that bad. I also don't think they're as good as they played last season. I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Maybe they were regressing to the mean, and obviously Austin Corbett not being out there hurts a great deal. But to me, the preseason is all about Bryce Young and how he looks, whether he looks the part, whether he can take a hit and get back up, whether he doesn't look like the game is too fast for him. And none of that happened. I mean, you were seeing him making reads and making plays that are the kind of plays that you expect to see from veterans that have been in the league for 10, 12 years. And to me, he was everything that I expected and was that Panthers fans and everyone was hoping that he would be, was somebody that can control the pocket, control the huddle, and make good decisions, smart decisions. And yes, could the receiver core be better? Absolutely. Could the offensive line and block better? 1,000%. But what I saw from Bryce Young, I was very impressed with, especially when they're generically calling plays. They're not game planning for a defense. I think as that stuff starts to ramp up, I think that's when you're really going to be impressed by what Bryce Young can do.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about some of the strengths that you saw from him. What are some things that you think the fans we're all fans, but what do you feel like, he is a rookie, but what are some things that you feel like he needs to work on as he goes into the season and as he kind of grows into this role as QB1?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that what is going to be very helpful for him is being able to adjust as defenses adjust after the snap. So one of the things that you see as these quarterbacks, they transition from college to the pros, you don't see a ton of the looks changing from before the snap to after the snap. And that's something that the Panthers defensive coordinator has really kind of buttered his bread on, is moving the safeties around before the snap. And then what it ends up being is not what you think it is. And then you have to adjust within a second and a half, or else you're going to throw an interception or you're going to get sacked. And so I think it's been very helpful for Bryce to be able to see all that stuff during training camp and during rookie minicamp. That kind of stuff can't be undervalued, excuse me. But I think that's going to be something that's going to come along as the season goes. And I think you're also going to see, this is a common trait for young quarterbacks, is they hold the ball a little bit too long. They think they can make that throw. They think they can squeeze it into a tight window. They think they can beat out the last guy and run for a touchdown. And somebody at Bryce's size, I mean, we're going to talk about it for the entirety of his career. He cannot get hit out there in the open field. He has to get down and slide, not worth the extra 2 yards. And that's just going to be something that he's going to learn. And I think it's also going to be something that you didn't really see it during the preseason, but I do think in the first few weeks, you're going to see him try to use the talent that has gotten him here to make some throws that are probably ill-advised and then just learn from those mistakes and move forward. I mean, he's not going to not throw interceptions. He's not going to not fumble. He's going to make mistakes. Just a matter of how you respond to those mistakes.
Yeah, for sure. And throughout the preseason and even in back to training camp, we have seen plenty of position battles throughout this preseason. What are some of those battles that you've observed? And I guess as cut down day is tomorrow, who would you say are some of those winners that you've seen and kind of maybe have won that battle, maybe right guard, that sixth receiver spot, ongoing?
Well, I think they had always penciled Chandler Zavala in to a starting guard spot. And it was actually, I was honestly genuinely surprised that he jumped in there so quickly after missing a lot of the offseason with an injury. So, but he certainly has gotten all the first string reps when he's been out there. And I think they were testing it out with Cade Mays. I think they were testing it out with Nash Jensen. Yep. I think Justin McCray got some looks out there, but realistically, they like Zavala. I think maybe he might be a better fit at left guard, but that's a little bit something down the road. I don't think that's something that's going to certainly if Austin Corbett is not going to play, they need their best player out there at right guard, not their best player, their best option at right guard. So I think that's where Zavala is going to fit in terms of that. And then, the thing is that a lot of the position battles, the way that they structured this roster is pretty interesting because realistically, the first 22 are set. I mean, there were some questions. Right guard was a question. Maybe nose was a question. I think where they were going to put Jeremy Chin was a question. But realistically, it was like you knew the three guys that were going to start on the defensive line. You kind of knew the edge rushers and the inside linebackers. You knew the top two corners. You knew the top two safeties. You knew the top 2-3 wide receivers. You knew the top tight end. You knew the top running back. You obviously know who quarterback is. So the big battles were going to always be this is how it is every season. It was just a little bit less apparent to me going in because usually you're like, hey, who's going to start opposite Dante Jackson? Hey, is Frankie Louvu going to be able to win the job and start at linebacker? Those questions didn't really exist during the spring. It was always like, here's basically the starting lineup. And then it was a question of like, is Shi Smith going to make the roster? Is, who's going to be the third corner? Who's going to be the fourth corner, which I think has not been answered yet. What's the defensive line rotation is going to look like? I think that's something that maybe it's just like, maybe because I spend a lot of time, lots of people, if you're listening to this podcast, you spend a lot of time around the Panthers and around the game. So sometimes I tend to look past like is Miles Sanders going to be good kind of questions and look to like, well, what percentage snaps is Shy Tuttle going to take? Those are the questions that I kind of think about. I'm really interested to see what happens week one.
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned those preseason position battles. And you actually mentioned Shy Tuttle, who's actually on my list of my question here. What are some Panthers that you feel like are underappreciated and we're not really talking about them a lot? Shy Tuttle's on my list. I think Raheem Blackshear is one. I think fans just don't realize how pivotal of a role he's going to play on this team this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I think especially, he's basically penciled in as their returner until they sign somebody else that will take his job ultimately. But I think that, they need a guy like that. I think I might go off list here. I think a lot of people are not paying attention. A lot of people don't like Chuba Hubbard, and I think they are not really paying attention to what kind of role he's going to have in this team. And I think the fact that he was one of the players that didn't suit up week 3 of the preseason, to me, that said, okay, well, this guy has his job secured. And I think so many people are focused in on that one rep when he got knocked down blocking a blitzing linebacker that they kind of feel like he doesn't have the pass protection. And listen, am I saying that's one of his strong suits? Absolutely not. Am I saying he is a top tier running back one? No, of course not. But I do think that he's going to have a role in this offense, more so than maybe people think. In terms of like underappreciated, I think you got to go to the defense. I mean, obviously those big guys in the middle are, whether it's Deshaun Williams, it's one of those things where we talked about his backstory, but never really talked about how good he can be on the field and how much space he can occupy. It's obviously one of the reasons why they felt comfortable releasing Marquand McCall is because, the nose. I talked to somebody and they were saying that, everybody kind of freaked out about the Marquand cut because he's the perfect fit for a nose tackle. But realistically, that was going to be maybe 10% of the defensive snaps, which amounts to like 5 or 6 a game.
Yeah.
And so, the reason why he was cut, it doesn't really have anything to do with his on-field performance. But I think that somebody like Deshaun Williams is going to take those reps. And whether it's Deshaun or Raekwon, one of the Williamses will be taking those reps in the middle, and is somebody that you won't really ever hear their name, but he will make a difference.
Yeah. Another guy that I had on my side was Taylor Moton, because I feel like we just don't call his name very much, and he's so he's just there, and that's a good thing for an offensive lineman when they don't call your name. You want to be seen but not heard as an offensive lineman. Let's talk about the play calling. You mentioned some of the O-line struggles. You mentioned the vanilla play calling. You may not have mentioned that, but that's okay. What are you looking for as the season starts in a few weeks? How aggressive is this team going to be out of the gate, specifically in the play calling? We know Frank Reich, 2017 Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl champion, led Nick Foles to the Super Bowl. So Reich's got the pedigree. He's got the background. What can you expect from this offense and the aggressiveness?
Yeah, I mean, he's not scared to let it loose. I mean, that has never been a thing that he has been afraid of, whether it's been in Philly or in Indianapolis. He was a guy that liked the deep ball. I think he likes a lot of, short rrhythm passing. It sounds so lame because that's like the entire NFL, right? It's like, right. Oh, he likes timing routes, and like, oh, he likes the tight end in the middle to create space for the slot guys outside the hashes. So it's like he likes the triangle reads and stuff like that. But it's kind of like, I actually just I happened to just see a YouTube video. The title was Frank Reich and his triangle read, so that's why that was stuck in my head. Yeah. But I think that you are going to see him. You're going to see him run the ball with Miles Sanders. I mean, whether it's Jonathan Taylor kind of became a star under when Frank Reich was there. So I think you're going to see a little bit more explosiveness, or at least attempts at explosiveness. That's the thing, is like shot plays and explosive plays. They don't happen unless the guy catches the ball, or unless unless the play action fake works. So you could throw it deep all you want, but if you're just 0 for 7 throwing it deep on 2nd and 3, then eventually you're just going to stop doing it because it's not working. So, they have to work a little bit early in the season, but I do think you're going to see, I think it's going to be an interesting mix of both Thomas Brown and Frank Reich. I don't think Thomas Brown is going to be calling plays, at least not at the beginning of the year, probably not for the entire season. But, we'll see how that goes. But I think you're going to see a lot more attempts at explosion over the course of the season.
My next question, if you've listened to this podcast for all 8 episodes so far, you'll know that this question has been asked. Brian Burns, we know about his new contract that's not signed yet. Nick Bosa is still holding out for the Niners, but Brian Burns has been here and he's been participating. He hasn't been holding out. He's been participating in everything. Do you think they're going to sign before the season? Or do you feel like this is going to drag on into the season?
Well, I'll answer your question, and then I want to try out a take on you, and I'll see if it's good. And then if it's not, then we'll cut it. You could tweet at me at Josh Klein Rules and tell me whether it's a good take. But first, I do not think that they will get this done before the season starts. Not unless Nick Bosa does first. If I am Brian Burns' agent, and I've said this multiple times, if I'm Brian Burns' agent, every time that the Panthers or Scott Fitterer texts me or tries to come to the table, I'm sending him back a screenshot of the stuff that the Panthers turned down to not trade Brian Burns. They traded down, they turned down 2 firsts and a second and Cam Akers from the Rams, who are maybe the worst team in the league this year. So you essentially turned down a top 5 pick for Brian Burns, and now you're going to come to my client and say, oh yeah, we're going to pay him like the 7th best edge rusher. No, you're going to pay him like the best edge rusher in the league. We're going to wait for Nick Bosa to sign. And then those are the kind of numbers that I want to get. Maybe they're not exactly the same. Maybe it's $1 million less. Maybe he wants to come in between Bosa and somebody else. But he certainly has a number in mind and is going to be based on what Nick Bosa signs for. And really can't blame him. Like whether or not he is a top 3 edge rusher in the league, the Panthers have treated him one for the past year. So that is the kind of contract he deserves, and that is the kind of contract he's going to get, because the Panthers have painted themselves into a corner where you cannot not bring him back. If you let Brian Burns leave for free agency, everybody is going to get fired there. So you have to sign him to a huge deal, because that's the only thing that he's going to sign.
Yep. No, I agree with you. Good take. And that it totally makes sense for sure.
Oh, that wasn't my take. Here's my take. Sorry, that's just my opinion. That's
okay, all right.
No. The takes get a little wilder and a little bit more off the wall, and that, especially ones that I'm just trying out here. So we got to see. I have a take, and the take is, or maybe it's a theory that that Brian Burns and Bryce Young are Cam Newton and Luke Kuechly for the next generation, except their roles are reversed. Brian Burns is Cam Newton and Bryce Young is Luke Kuechly. Bryce Young is the all-American guy that they could take home to mama, and everybody loves him, and he talks so sweetly, but then when he's on the field, he's intense, he's going to yell at you, he's going to scream at you. Brian Burns off the field, huge personality, has nicknames, he's making videos, he's hilarious, he's giving out, he's literally like months away from giving out nicknames and creating new high fives with every starter. So Brian Burns is Cam Newton, Bryce Young is Luke Kuechly. What do you think?
I like it. I like it. And as he said, at Josh Klein rules, feel free to give him his feedback on Twitter. S Ryan Smith 7 is mine. Go ahead and go out there and see what you think on Josh Klein's take.
Tag us both.
All right. Before we get into some predictions and then we'll get you out of here. Similar to what I've kind of asked already, but a little bit different form. What are some of your players that you would say are a few guys that are stock up going into the season, and then some guys that are, we won't say stock down, but we'll say they need to show some, even though they might make the roster, they need to show, more of a pivotal role as we go into the season.
Okay, well, let's start with the safety position. Okay. Stock up is Sam Franklin, who over the course...
That's a good one, because for those who may not know who Brian Baldinger is, he had tweeted out last year, Sam Franklin, go find Baldy. He's a ex NFL player. Great analyst for Info Network, talked about Sam Franklin's special teams prowess and how he's one of the top gunners in the NFL. And there's plenty of video out on that. I'm not sure if you saw it, and I apologize.
I did. And not only did he call him he called him the best special teams player in the NFL. And I'll be honest, I don't watch a ton of other special teams players, so I'm inclined to agree. So I think that Sam Franklin is not only proved himself as a special teams leader. There are other guys on this team that are going to make some special teams impact, whether it's Chandler Wooten or Camus, I think is going to make a big special teams impact. But ultimately, this guy, Sam Franklin, is going to be involved in a lot of plays. When you're the gunner, you kind of always are. You're the guy and he's super athletic and super fast. So he's going to be the guy that's diving over the goal line and hitting the ball back. He's making big hits on punt returns when the guy doesn't do a fair catch. And then one of the things that he has really worked on over the past year is improving his defensive prowess as a safety. So he has made himself not a liability when he's out there. Not that he was last year, but now he is even more. You saw him have an interception in week one, whatever, sometime in the preseason. Yeah, they're all the same. None of them counted. But like, you saw him make a bad cut. Probably should have taken it back for a pick six. Sorry, Sam, if you're listening. But I think he is on his way to being not just a fan favorite, because I think he's already there. He was one of the Panthers players that was on the Roaring Riot cruise. in February and really ingratiated himself. Has great personality. The dude's awesome. So I think Sam Franklin is definitely stock up and will probably continue on that trajectory. And then if we're sticking to the safeties, I think people had a lot of really high hopes for Jamie Robinson, and I don't think that he has really lived up to that thus far. He's a rookie. It's only preseason. I'm not judging the guy. He may have a great career. A lot of football left to be played, but looked a little bit lackadaisical on some tackles, maybe in the wrong spot. So just somebody that I think a lot of people were like, oh, this guy is going to come in and challenge for a starting spot, and that just was not something that was going to happen, especially not with Xavier Woods and Von Bell in front of him. On the offensive side of the ball, honestly, Chandler Zavala, I did not think he was going to be the starter coming into the season. I thought he was going to be somebody that they were going to bring along slowly, and they were going to stick with Cade Mays, or maybe they were going to put somebody else out there, or they were even going to bring in a right guard. Which is still a possibility. So I think I'm not 100% sure that he has played well enough to earn that spot going away. And if there is a veteran right guard that is cut tomorrow or today through the magic of podcasting, I think that he may not be the immediate starter, but I think just playing himself into that position has been pretty impressive on that offensive line side of the ball.
Yeah. And there has been talk, or at least this might be in my mind, Brady Christensen could be the Cam Irving swing tackle of the future, and then putting Zavala on the left guard. As we know, that might be a better fit for him down the road long term. Well, it's day before the cut down day as we're recording this. Let's get into the roster projections, and then we'll get some predictions and get you out of here. Let's start with the offensive side of the ball. I think personally, 3 quarterbacks, Young, Dalton, Corral, in order. Running back.
You sure about that third one?
I don't know. Getting some of the tea leaves, it's hard to know. It's hard to read. That's just.
I think 3 quarterbacks, but I'm not 100% sure that Corral is the third quarterback. But we'll see.
We'll see. 3 running backs: Sanders, Hubbard, Blackshear is my vote. Spencer Brown, great preseason. I hope he's a practice squad guy. That's my opinion there. We know the 6 wide receivers because of the injuries. Unfortunately, they talked about keeping 5, but I think 6 is what they're going to go with. Is that 6th guy on the roster? I don't know. It seems like it's Derek Wright for now, but I don't get the sense that's who they want long term. But we'll see on that front.
I will say Derek Wright has a really nice connection with Bryce Young. He clearly appreciates him, and Derek Wright is like one of those guys that everybody really likes to have on your roster. Just like you said, though, it would not surprise me for him to end up on the practice squad, and the guy that ends up on the active roster for 6 weeks, but ultimately spends most of his time on the practice squad.
Yeah. Tight end, I've got 3 guys. Some people have Trimble getting cut. Some people have Giovanni Ricci getting cut. I'm not sure who might be the odd man out there. I got Trimble out in, Ricci out. What say you?
I think I agree with you. I think that one of the reasons why one of the reasons why Ben McAdoo liked Giovanni Ricci and Matt Rule specifically is because of that ability to play fullback. McAdoo, I think, valued that a little bit higher in his scheme. I'm not sure there's a place for a fullback in the Frank Reich scheme, or Frank Reich / Thomas Brown scheme. So we'll see. Obviously, I think if they keep Ricci, then that'll reveal it. But I would personally, I would keep Tremble over Thomas. I think he's younger, has a little bit more raw talent, but we'll see. It kind of depends on what they value, honestly.
Yeah. And then O-line, if you're doing math, which is not my strong suit, I've got 9, Icky, Christensen, Bozeman, Zavala, Moten, that's our starters. And then Nash Jensen, Cam Irving, Cade Mays, and Justin McCray. Those are my 9.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Obviously I think Austin Corbett is going to make the initial 53-man roster. This is like the kind of geeky stuff that I always think about is like, who can they cut and then bring back? So maybe that ends up being, maybe it is like Nash Jensen or Justin McCray, who have not really gotten a ton of run in the preseason. So it's like, or maybe it's like a wide receiver or or one of the, I guess, edges, but I don't think they really want to do that. But I don't think they want to expose those guys.
And then we'll do front seven altogether and then back seven special teams. So in the front seven, I've got Derek Brown, Deshaun Williams, Shai Tuttle, Henry Anderson, and Raquan Williams on the line. The edge, Burns, Houston, Haynes, Yetur, DJ Johnson, Amari Barno. And then your backers, Thompson, Luvu, Jones, Kamu, and Chandler Wooten is someone I've heard that could get there. I'm still not sure about him. He's been talked up a little bit, but we'll see.
I would be absolutely floored if he does not make the 53-man roster. He played like 56% of their special team snaps last year. Tabor's back again. He's obviously somebody they value, and like he had a pretty good final game. And I mean, I try my best not to be like, ooh, week 3 of the preseason, put too much stock into it, but he did have a pretty good game. So
yeah. And then finally, secondary, before we get to the special teams, secondary, J.C. Horn, Dante Jackson, Troy Hill, C.J. Henderson, Keith Taylor. I've heard, talking to some of my sources, I've heard both ways. It depends on who you talk to. Some people have him making it, some people do not. And then the safety, Woods, Bell, Chin, Jamie Robinson, Sam Franklin. That's the secondary. I would say Keith Taylor either makes it or they go out and sign someone in that secondary for that last position.
Yeah, I think they're definitely going to sign. I think they're going to sign a corner, maybe a tight end. Probably not a tight end, but definitely a corner. I would not be surprised to see them bring in another guy along the defensive line, maybe 2. And then maybe even somebody on offense. I don't know whether it's a wide receiver or even that third quarterback. That third quarterback spot is so weird because of the new rules. Still counts towards the 53, but not on game day. So it's like, I just remember so specifically asking, like really early, like rookie minicamp or one of those, like in April, when like a really long time ago, I asked Reich if it made it easier to keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster because of the new rule. And he said, and he kind of like jumbled around. Like I was just kind of expecting him to be like, yes, it does. And, talk for 30 seconds, but he didn't really say that. He was kind of like, well, it's a numbers game. So we got to make sure that everything makes sense. So I'm not 100% sure that they, I think they probably will keep 3, but I don't think that it is such a foregone conclusion that everybody else has, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And then specialists, we know for a while it's been Eddie, Johnny, and JJ, the old stalwart there in the special teams room. Surprised they didn't try to go trade Matthew Wright, maybe for a 7th round pick or maybe 6th round pick. He was doing pretty good this preseason.
Well, they still can. So they announced that they're waiving these guys, but they don't actually hit it's like it's weird, right? Because you could tell Adam Schefter that you're waiving him, but until it goes to the transaction, like until you send it to the NFL, it hasn't happened yet. So if you say, hey, we're waiving Matthew Wright, then maybe somebody says, oh, hey, before you waive them, we have the 28th waiver wire order. So we'll trade you a 7th for him, or a conditional 7th.
Yeah.
Whatever the case is.
Yeah, so we'll see there. Well, awesome. Good to get our thoughts here on the 53. Let's go ahead and get a few predictions, and we'll get you out of here. Player that takes the biggest leap this season, who you got?
Bryce Young.
So original.
Yeah, well, I mean, all right. So let's actually, I'll give you a real answer, and the real answer is, and he took a huge leap last year, but I do think that Frankie Luvu is going to like vault himself into the national conversation as like, hey man, look at this guy. Like this guy, like he's going to be somebody that like Bill Simmons is like, I saw this guy Luvu, he was great. When the Panthers upset whoever they're going to upset, like that guy's crazy, got big hair.
Yeah. I've been saying Derek Brown, even though he's already took another leap, like you said last year. I think this defense is going to be perfect for him. Who is our go-to offensive playmaker this year that is going to be dependent on most this season?
Man, probably Miles Sanders. I don't really think I waited until late in the podcast. I don't really think the Panthers did a great job of surrounding Bryce Young with a ton of weapons. And I know that everybody gets excited about DJ Chark and Adam Thielen and these guys, but realistically, you look around the rest of the league, the wide receiver room is not stacked by any means. And Miles Sanders, I think, is by far the most talented guy on this offense outside of Bryce Young. So to me, I think Miles Sanders, if Miles Sanders doesn't have a good season, this offense is going to look pretty bad.
No, I've got Hayden Hurst. I think just like Cam with Greg Olsen, I think, and Shockey his rookie year as well. I think you could see that Hayden Hurst developing a good rapport there. Most underrated defensive player on the team.
Well, I already said Frankie Louvu, so
you can say it again.
Let's see. Now I gotta look. Now I gotta do a little scrolling here. Can I say Marquise Haynes? Because Marquise Haynes is really good at rushing the passer and might be really, really good in this defense. And I think they signed Justin Houston because they wanted somebody to be able to kind of be that pass rushing specialist. But Marquise Haynes has been good the past ever since he's been in the league. It's always like, man, you look down and you're like, Marquise Haynes has 7 sacks this year. Like, he had the second most sacks on the team last year. He's the only guy that could get to the quarterback outside of Brian Burns. So I'll say Marquise Haynes.
I'm going to go with Von Bell. I think he was an absolutely stud of a signing for this defense. And it's
good call.
Great. And then season record, I've been saying 9-8. That's my prediction. I'm sticking to it. I may be a game or two off either direction, but 9-8 is where I'm going.
17-0 Super Bowl. Only prediction, only way to go.
Okay. I'll put you down. David Newton also said, or not David Newton, James Zoki also said that on his podcast as well. He said 17-0 as well. He could not give me
the smart guys don't put out the real numbers because it can only get thrown back in your face.
Yeah.
And everybody gets mad at me when I give my real prediction. So I just 17-0 Super Bowl.
There you go. All right. Well, as I said at the top, my guest today has been the editor-in-chief at the Riot Report, Josh Klein. Again, follow him at Josh Klein Rules on Twitter. He does great work at the Riot Report. Josh, all the best, man. Great to have you on, and it's been fun here on Inside the Vault.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, if you're a Panthers fan, I know this is like the end of the pod, and you've probably shut it off by now. Maybe my voice is fading into the music, but you should probably look into the Roaring Riot. We are a fan union that has 7,000 members all around the world, 40 chapters. Anywhere that in the world that you are a Panthers fan, you be part of the Roaring Riot. We have a huge tailgate a block from the stadium. We have away game experiences. We have 200 people going to Atlanta, 200 to Jacksonville, a few hundred to Nashville. If you are a Panthers fan, don't watch the game by yourself. Don't do that. You don't have to. Go out, hang out with your friends. And if you don't have any Panthers friends, find out where the Roaring Riot chapter is near you and go watch the game with them. The first home weekend of the year, we're throwing a huge party. It's called the Roaring Riot Kickoff Jam. We've got Better Than Ezra, Arrested Development, Nappy Roots, Thomas Davis, Charles Johnson, Stephen Davis. A bunch of Panthers legends are going to be there signing autographs. A bunch of bands are going to be there playing music. A bunch of Panthers fans are going to be there drinking beer. So you should come out and have fun. Ryan, I hope to see you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Josh, again. And as you said, check out Roaring Riot Report there. And that will wrap up this edition here of Inside the Vault, episode number 9. Again, my name is Ryan Smith, your host. And again, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And we will see you next time.